Today's daf is daf nun aleph. We learned a brisa that covered a number of dinim, and now the Gemara is going to go through each particular din. And fascinating that half of the Gemara is trying to understand an opinion of Rabbi Lezer, about 5 different ways of understanding him. And the Gemara concludes, it's Hilchos al Mashiach. Like, what's the difference? Why are we even going into this whole sugya? But the Gemara didn't ask the question till first they went through the whole sugya. So we'll have to do all that. There's one thing we said that by Abbas Koyin, Avia hi mechalelis. So we said, what does it mean hi mechalelis? It's a stain on the family name. But we said yesterday, but I mean I should spell it out. What exactly are the ramifications? So there's one school of thought, the Rishonim, the Mordechai and others, that learn that he mechalelis means that you no longer, he's sort of a chol, a partial chol, in the sense that you no longer have to give him the kibudim that a kohen is entitled to, to be the first one, to bench, to be the first, all the kibudim you give a kohen, he loses. Yeah. But everything else is still a kohen. And in fact, even bichas kohenim is still a kohen. It's only the kibudim. But even that, we say that that's not the final halach. It's just, as the Gemara will conclude, hopefully for today, that you're allowed to call him a rasha, you're allowed to denigrate him, and which normally you wouldn't have to do that. But in this case, he is at fault as well for raising such a child. So we are up to the Gemara. The Gemara will go through every din of the brisa. So as we go through the Gemara, we'll remind you what the brisa says. So we're up to the Gemara, Aleph, Amar Aleph, and 5 lines from the top. Amar. The first thing the brisa said is that we would have thought the Gemara is going to explain what the havamin of each of the brisa is. It says kiseicha livnois, so it said Abbas ish kohen kiseicha livnois. We thought that even if she did any avera, even let's say chil Shabbos, maybe she desecrate, and so on and so forth, she should get skila. That's what we would have thought. Bas, so the Bas ish kohen kiseicha, she gets reifa, maybe even chil Shabbos. He said no, only liznus. That's what listeners is only if committed this avera of the mezana while she's a married woman. Now, the Gemara is going to ask, why would you think chilul Shabbos? Why would you even think so? So Rav Gemara and Aleph from Aleph 6 lines on top of the page, and the Gemara is going to reiterate, go through the brisa and explain each part. First part of the brisa. Yachol, talking about the daughter of a kohen, which is treated differently, that her punishment is sreifa, burning. As opposed to, let's say, Bas Yisrael, who's mezana, they get chenek. So she gets a stricter punishment. Oh, man. I would have thought of the Shabbos, even if she was desecrating the Shabbos. So the Gemara asked the question, what? You would have thought that what? That Chil Shabbos, she gets streifa? The whole idea of Abbas Kohen is she gets a stricter punishment. Everyone else who's Mechal Shabbos gets skila, and you would have thought that Abbas Kohen should get streifa? Why would you even think so? Why would you think she gets a lighter punishment? Shabbos Baskili, Shabbos is skila. This part of the brisa follows Reb Shimon, who hold that streifa is stricter than skila. So I would have thought that she gets streifa. Okay, Dama Seifa Chamur. I would have thought. So why would you think that she should get streifa for Shabbos? Generally speaking, kohenim are treated stricter than others. They have more mitzvahs. The rabbi but mitzvahs they say there are many more mitzvahs involved in the Beis Hamikdash, more than an ordinary Yisrael. So I would have thought the severity of the sin for Chil Shabbos should be worse for Chil Shabbos for a kohen than for anybody else. The obvious question is, why only a bas kohen? What about an ordinary kohen? As you will ask in a minute. Tidaim b'sereifa kamashlet? No. Why should you think that a bas kohen should get treated stricter, that she gets burning according to Shimon, but a regular kohen gets skila? Why would that be? Savdim would have thought. In fact, a kohen Shabbos for them is more lenient than even for Yisrael, because we allow them to bring karbanos to shecht and all these things which you're not allowed to do. But by her, she has all the same laws of Shabbos like anybody else. And she's a bas kohen. I would have thought that should be stricter with her. She should get skila. She gets streifa. No. She gets the same punch as everybody else. The base of Engel has a whole arichas, and he wants to say in one of his form that the Rebbe has a chakira. When we say on Yom Kippur, the day Yom Kippur is different. What about the ordinary activities that a kohen gadol does on Yom Kippur, like a carbon tamid? Is that a Yom Kippur dika tamid, or those activities which you do every single day, even on Yom Kippur, like every day? The Yom Kippur, what's special is the avodas of Yom Kippur. So the same question is by a kohen. A kohen, when he does other mitzvahs, not the mitzvahs that are specific for a kohen, are they any different than anybody else? He brings it out from the Gemara here. I mean, he has a whole riches of this. That the Gemara Havamina was that we would have thought that since she's a Bas Kohen, that even her Chil Shabbos is treated differently than everybody else. And the Torah is because of only the punishment is not. Doesn't tell you that her Shemir Shabbos is maybe in a way, it's a Kohen that Shemir Shabbos is different. It's just that the punishment is no different than anybody else. So that's what he discusses, whether a Kohen and all their other activities are different. Yochel, the next part of the Bride says, Yochel, a Bas Kohen who's not married. Maybe also if she commits not adultery, if she has intimacy when she's a single girl, she should also get burnt, get punished. So and they were bringing apostles as well. So said, how can you even think so in the first place? The way we answer, we had Xer Shabbat. It says a via here. It says a via by a girl who's a Naira Morasa, and she was caught with witnesses. You bring her out to the gate and you kill her. So because it's a via, we know it's a married woman. Why would you think a single girl? Where does nus come into a single girl? So the Gemara, follows nus. It's a phrase in the pasuk that it only applies if it is nice. It's nus. Nus is not by a single girl. Says the Gemara, no, there is one opinion. He says. It's a single guy and a single girl. They had let's say an affair. Also Zaina, she feel like a Zaina. So for example, she can no longer marry a Kohen because she's a Zaina. She falls under that category. So this part of the Brisa, in other words, the Brisa is going through every lone opinion, and according to that opinion, we would have thought the din here should apply this way, and therefore we have a Shabbos via. Then the Gemara continues. Then the Brisa continues. Maybe you're telling me Avi is coming to tell you it's extra, to tell you Xer Shabbat, that only a married woman. Maybe Avi is coming to tell you only if she had an affair with her own father, she gets Sreifa. Tell you affair with any other person, she'll get a different punishment. When does she get Sreifa? If she has incest with her father. So you want to say since we know the din is that any girl that has incest with her father, the punishment is streifa. So why does the Torah say Bas Kohen? Why only a Bas Ish Kohen? Anybody. My area, but how can you think so? My area, Bas Kohen. In fact, the Brisa answered because it says he mechalela. She's the one who's doing all the avera. That she's doing all the heavy lifting and not him. So obviously the father is not involved in this. That's what the Brisa says. So the Gemara asks, and without this pasuk, why would you think it's incest of the father? So then why is it talking about a Basish Kohen? Any Bas incest of the father, the punishment is straight. So the Gemara, my Bas Kohen, Bas Olami. Rabbi said, we have a pasuk, we have a double Xer Shabbat. It says in one pasuk that the herb of your granddaughter and the herb through your son or through your daughter is forbidden for you. So how do you know the herb of your own children are forbidden to you? And we can't make a kal v'chomer because we know a rule. If your granddaughter is forbidden, obviously his daughter is also forbidden to you, incest. But we know ein einshin minadin. We don't punish from a kal v'chomer. So we have a Xer Shabbat. It says here the word. This is it says ke'ervascha heina. And then we have again heina. It says the herb of your wife and her daughter is forbidden to you. And there it says daughter, your wife's daughter, and there it concludes. Shara Heina, Zima Heina. It says Heina. So we compare the granddaughter to your daughter. So we have Xer Shabbat. The only way you know you have incest your own daughter. Heina Heina. And then in that very pasuk it says Shara Heina, that's your relative, Zimahi. Right? It says Zimahi. So we dash on a Zima here from another pasuk where it says Zima, that if a man lives with his wife and her mother, if he lives with both of them, it's called in the pasuk Zimahi, and you get burnt. So we learn out from there, and then we go back. So Zima, then Heina, in that same passage that says Zima says Heina goes back that if a person has incest with his daughter, he gets a punishment of streifa. So why talk about Basish Kohen? So what's the Brisa talking about? Itzif, no, we need it. So I would have thought, that the fact that it says Bas Ish Kohen gets streifa, I would have thought this pasuk usurps the Xer Shabbat and tells you, we use Xer Shabbat other thing, but tells you that when it comes to your own, only a Bas Kohen, Bas Ish Kohen gets streifa, not a Bas Yisrael. La Fuk with Rabbi. To say Rabbi is wrong. Forget, because the Torah only highlights this, the Basish Kohen and Aviyah. Maybe by a Yisrael Taki, you don't get strafer. I Rava says you do. Here we see you don't. And that's why the Brisa says no. Because it says he mechalela, she's doing all the wrong things. Obviously, we're not talking about incest with your father. Come teach you that. And we use Aviyah for the other things, a married woman. Bas Koyin, ainly, then the Brisa continued, the Bas Koyin, I would have thought, ainly Ella Nisas LeKoyin, she married a Koyin. How do you know if Nisas a Levi Yisrael, she's no longer qualified to be a Bas Koyin, as we'll see, she cannot eat Truma right now. How do you know if she's married to them, or to Ebi Gechadim, or she's married to a guy which is doing an Avera, or the Cholo, or the Sin, or the Mamzer, Menayin? How do you know that if she commits an Avera, she's still treated like a Bas Koyin and she'll get straight? I'm like a Bas Ish Koyin. As long as she's a daughter of a kohen, that's all that matters. Even though she's not a kohenis. So you might ask, "Mishum the insibu lahu lahani la bas kohen." What's the havmina? The Torah says bas kohen. So what if she married Yisrael or Levi? Why is she no longer bas kohen? The su midi kohenis la kohen. See, where does the Torah say that it has to be a kohenis? First it says basish kohen. She qualifies under that. Second of all, nowhere does the Torah say that she has to be married to a kohen. So why would you think so? No, it says this is the first time she did something wrong. Now she became like a chol, no longer a kohen. Here already she did the wrong thing. Because she already, no, not the wrong thing. She already is no longer considered a kohen because she married Israel. She can no longer eat truma, and we'll soon see the machlekes Rameh and Chamim whether she loses the kuna while she's in constant. She's no longer a kohen. So therefore, we would have thought the same thing was to punish her streifer. Now, we learned a bas kohen kisil izar. I have an interesting machlek. A bas kohen who marries a Yisrael. Kiva shenivala pasla. As soon as she married, what do you call it? To apostle. Let's say if she married a nasin or mamzer, is pasal. She's pasal, right? She can no longer live with a kohen. The Levi Yisrael Nami, and in other words, even if the husband dies, is divorced, she cannot go back to her family and continue eating truma. She's completely ruined. Yeah, Levi Yisrael. What about if she's married to Levi Yisrael? Kolzman, she's married to the Levi Yisrael, she cannot eat truma. If she has a child, even though her husband died, she cannot go back home. But if she has no children, she could go back. Right? True. But right now. Only when she goes back. So I would have thought, but right now she's not treated like a coin. I would have thought, I would have thought she shouldn't get sreifa. Maybe right now she's not a coin. Kamashlan, she does. And this does not follow Rameir. Because Rameir holds taka, she's not a coin. If she married someone, Yisrael Levi, he says Yitaka completely not a coin, and she won't get sreifa either. And the Bryce doesn't agree with it. That's what Bryce is saying. We would have thought that maybe right now, since she cannot eat truma, she's no longer considered a bas kohen as far as everything's concerned. That's what we're thinking. A streifer. What about opinion of Ben? It doesn't say, but maybe in every respect. Kamash Malan, that no, she's totally a bas kohen right now. Just because she cannot eat truma, she's still considered a bas kohen. The time we learned, what's the sort of mayor? Bas kohen she's Yisrael, a bas kohen who married Yisrael, truma, she ate truma, mishalem, so they can. She has to obviously play the principle. Because like anybody else, she has no right to eat someone's room. The Ein of Shalom Chabad, she doesn't pay the penalty. Why doesn't she pay the penalty? Because she's still Bas Kohen. Umisasa b'Sreifa. And her Misa is Sreifa. No, but she's still a Bas Kohen. She's married to Yisrael. But Nisa's Le'echem and Apsulin. If she married a Mamzer, so she married a Levi Yisrael, she's still a Bas Kohen. Because and the very fact that she can go back home and to eat Truma means that even right now she's considered a Bas Kohen. But if Nisa's Le'echem and Apsulin, if she married one of the Psulin, a mamzer or nusin or whatever, mishalem is kenuchayma. She loses the kuna completely. Since she doesn't go back home, she's already not only she's disqualified from truma, she's no longer a bas kohen. So therefore, she'll pay the penalty as well as if she's Yisrael. And umisasa bechenek. That means she's completely given up her kuna. So she'll pay opinion bench. She would have to have whatever it is. She completely gives up her kuna. Give it a mer. And the Chachamim say, zu v'zu, even if she lives with someone that's also to her, b'shalom es kenem l'chaymesh umisasem b'seif. That's what the Bride is coming to say. We follow Chachamim. There's a Peladik Rashi, which I didn't point out to you yesterday. Didn't have time. We give 3 examples in the Gemara. She married, what's possible? she married a goy, for example, she married a goy, a cholol, a mamzer, and a sin. She's not allowed to marry. But she married a chol, somebody who's disqualified being a kohen because his mother was a divorcee and his father was a kohen, or a mamzer and a sin, or he married a goy. Now, married a goy is not married. Is not married. Rashi said, you have to learn this Rashi because it's an amazing Rashi. Rashi is on the top of the page in the narrow lines. The very first word of the narrow line, the top of there. Rashi saying that we're following Rabbi Akiva because the extra vav ubas, which we'll come back to later, we follow Rabbi Akiva that says that she's always that no matter if she's an old woman or whatever, it's not only a naira rusa. If she commits adultery, she gets straight because we follow Rabbi Akiva. So now the question Rabbi Akiva holds that there's no kedushin by chayav labin. So we follow the opinion that says there's no kedushin only if it's marriage, only if it's usher to you because of marriage, she'er, a relative. But if it's usher because of mamzer or a sin or these things, kedushin nechal. What about a goy? Says Rashi. Loy Omar, Aval Mechayv Lav and Greida Loy Omar. Stam Lav, Rabbi Akiva wasn't talking about it. Oy like a Chavim Equal Lav, there's like this Chattenbam. By a goy, there's a Lav like this Chatten. So there's Kedushin. Rashi says if a woman, if a woman marries a goy, there's Kedushin. Pel de Rashi. Pel de Rashi. Since it's only a lab, Kedushin is chal by chayavi labin, and therefore that which is a pella. So some people change the whole girsa. They say kusim means kusim. No, they say goy means kusim. Kusim then doesn't come under this chattenbam. Very appel de Rashi. Appel de Rashi. Someone limp shot at Rashi that it means the 7 nations they're not allowed to marry. If they were megayer, there's still Isa to marry them. That's what he's talking about. But Rashi doesn't say that. He says clearly. So the only way they can resolve this Rashi is by changing your source. But Rashi doesn't have that. What's that? I see something over here. Kusis. They want to put kusis. But anyway, but I shouldn't say that. Because kusis, there's no lav like this chattenba. No, kushis. This is kusis. This is the nation that Gedi Arois, Gedi Emes. And that even though they were gating, but because we found them, traveling to the mountain, so we don't want to marry them. But it doesn't come on like this chattenba. Anyway, Pel de Garashi. Let's continue. The Gemara. Back to the Gemara. Then the Gemara further. Then it says, okay. Now comes opinion number 3 in this brisa that we're saying that our brisa is coming to negate Rameir. Mason, if you marry someone that's also to you, she loses all her. She's no longer a bas kohen. Comes along Rabbi Lazar. Now the next whole Gemara is trying to explain Rabbi Lazar what he meant with these words. He's very cryptic. Es of the besreif. With her father or under her father, she gets reif. Es chamer with her father-in-law, beskila. What's he saying? My es aviv es chamer. We're gonna have like 5 or 6 opinions of what exactly Rabbi Lazar meant. What do you mean? Ilema, did he mean es avia? She's with her father means me'avia, means she consorted with her father. She goes with the father, she gets safe. The es chamer. Now, before we go back to Gemara, to understand this whole Gemara, just to remind you, we have, according to the Rachamim, a bas kohen. I don't care if she's engaged or she's married. If she commits adultery, she gets one punishment. She gets strafe. Sorry, I make a mistake. But Rav Shimon says, I don't care. She always gets strafe because Torah doesn't make a distinction between the two. And remember, he holds that strafe is the strictest punishment. The Chachamim say skill is stricter. So therefore, as follows: when do we say bas kohen gets strafe or when stricter than Yisrael when she's married? But if she's an arusa, she'll get skill like a bas Yisrael. Why should she come down a step? Okay, these are 2 opinions we had till now. We're soon going to find there's a 3rd opinion of Bishmol and maybe a 4th opinion. Because Bishmol holds exactly the opposite, as we'll see. But remember that. Let's go to Gemara now. So what does it mean? Elaim Esavi means Nevi. She had incest with her father. The Eschameh means incest Mechameh with her father-in-law. The Mayir Bas Kohen. I feel about Yisrael Nami. B'tei b'seifa. Anyone's daughter, like we had before, is safer with incest. And Kalosai, that's not your father, is Stam Yisrael, then you get skilla. That's the law for anybody. Why talk about a Bas Kohen? What's the relevance of Bas Kohen here? Ela Esavia means while she's still at home. B'shusavia means she's an Arusa. So an Arusa, what he's saying here, Rabbi Lezer is saying Arusa gets Sreifa. The Eschamer, but if she's a married woman, she's ready at her father's place, B'shus Chamer, she'll get Skila. which is exactly the opposite of what our Chacham holds. So come on, who is this opinion? Rabbanon, they say exactly the opposite. Ha'amri, they say Nesua Yatzal Sefer. Dafka, married woman gets Sefer. You're telling me now, according to this, you're telling me if she's with her father, knows Arusa gets Sefer. But if she's a Nesua, she gets Skila. Exactly the opposite of what the Chacham hold. Chacham hold Nesua Yatzal Sefer, Nesua. If she's married, she gets Sefer, stricter than a Bas Yisrael. But Arusa should get equal to Skila because that's the strictest punishment. Exactly the opposite. No, she holds like Rav Shimon. But Rav Shimon holds everybody gets Sefer. Can't be Rav Shimon, then it must be Rabbi Shmuel. Now, what does Rabbi Shmuel say, which we'll learn more later? He says, Arusa Yotzel Sreifa. He holds Taka Arusa gets Sreifa, like Rabbi Shimon, which is like SOV gets Sreifa. But what was the next thing Rabbi Lazar said? By Es Chamed, that if you're a married woman, you get Skila. Rabbi Shmuel holds that a married woman gets Chenek. No different than a Bas Yisrael. Es Chamed Chenek. He holds who's Rabbi Lazar? Okay, now we'll have a number of explanations. That was explanation number one. We don't like it. Number two, Shalach Rav Mashmei Rabbi Yeshua Chanina. Rav said the name of Chanina, and later on the Gemara will say halach is like this view. Kach he had social mission. This is in the mission. Lo'elim Karabbanon. He holds like the Rabbanon. If he holds like the Rabbanon, the Rabbanon hold that Arusa gets skila, not sreifa, and the Nasuya gets sreifa, not skila. Exactly the opposite. So this is how you read. Who told you that means while you're living at home or while you're living with your husband's family? Anyone who gets what do you call it? No, if she has incest with her father, she gets streifa. So anyone whose punishment is one step lower than streifa, what's slower than streifa? Chenek, in other words, a married woman, she matam misavi mayu. Nusua basisol gets one step lower than streifa, gets chenek. The Nusua basisol bechenek is hacha. The mislavia is beseifa. Over here, with what happens to the father, she gets safe. Those women who get a step higher, but get skila, which is an arusa. Mani arusa, basisrol, the arusa, basisrol, ba'am beskila. Hoch over here, the misl chamer beskila. Over here also she gets skila, exactly like a chamim. But we're learning the most cryptic shot that esavia means you're married because you're a step lower than your father. And as Chomer means that you're engaged because you're a step above your father. What are you talking about? Maskara be a middle, mataktoni. Where do you get to all these things? Step above, step below. Elam Rabbi Yimir. Here, the first Rabbi Yimir is actually thinking straight and not breaking things up. Elam Rabbi Yimir said, Le'elam Rabbi Shmuel. Actually, follow Rabbi Shmuel. Now, what does Rabbi Shmuel say? Rabbi Shmuel says that a woman's arusa gets reifa, which is exactly what Rabbi Lazar said, but we had a problem. Rabbi Shmuel holds that a married woman gets chenek, and he says, Chomer, you get skila. Esavia means b'shusavia while she's an engaged woman, she'll get streifa. There's chamer, but if as chamer, michamer b'skila, only with a father-in-law gets skila. V'cholad mechenik. Anyone else, if you're a married woman like Rabbi Shmuel, you get chenek, and your father-in-law is an exception. With your father-in-law, you get skila. Omar Rav Zerava, Maishna. What's the difference? So not only that, forget about the halachic part of it. You're saying that with your father-in-law you get skila. Now remember, according to Rav Shimon, skila is a step above. Sorry, we'll see later how Shmuel holds. But Rav Shimon looks. What do you think? Esavi means her status while she's living with her father. In other words, she's engaged. And Chamer means with who she consorted with. How do you do that? Both of them are talking about the same thing. Either both are talking about who in whose home you are, or both are talking about who you consorted with. Can't have one way, one another way. So I don't understand. Either you're talking about who you consorted with, or you're talking about in whose domain you are. Yeah, Elamarama. Leilam Kirab Shimon. We hold like Rab Shimon. Going back a third shot. Rabbi hold like Rab Shimon, which is why that Arusa gets what do you call it? Both of them get streifa. Arusa and Nasuya both get streifa. It makes no difference. The problem is here it says that an Arusa gets streifa, but Nasuya gets skila. As Chomer it says skila. Ukasavar Abelaz Nasuya ka Arusa. He holds. I agree that the same. He said, I hold that a Nasuya has the same thing like Arusa. What do you mean? You always go one step above. What is that? What is a Nasuya? Sorry, what does an Arusa get? A Bas Yisrael Arusa gets skila. What does a Bas Kohen get? One step above, streifa. What does a Nasuya Bas Yisrael get? chenek. Remember, Reb Shimon holds that chenek is higher than saif. What's one step above? One step above that is skila. And therefore, let Reb Shimon. We go up one step, miskila streifer, right? What happens to Arusa? We go from skila to streifer because we follow Reb Shimon, that streifer is the strictest. So after Nasuya, we'll go one step above. Chadarga maskinala. Mechanik, what does a Nasuya, Abbas Yisrael get? Chenek. And according to Reb Shimon, what's a step above chenek? Skila. The skila. So it's like Reb Shimon, but not exactly. If you're following Reb Shimon, what does Reb Shimon hold? Reb Shimon personally holds that both of them, Arusa and Nasuya, both get streifer. So there's a new opinion. Who's he following? Nobody says this. Elam Ravina. Another pshat. La'ilam kirabanan. Let's go back to the Rabbanan. Be'efach. And swap the words around. The easiest thing. Remember, Rabbanan holds an Arusa gets skila, and Nasuya gets streifer. So even though it says over here Esavia streifer, Eschamel skila, just swap it around. Esavia is skila, and Eschamel is streifer. Be'efach. Esavia beskila with her. If she lives with her father, she's an Arusa. She'll get skila. Eschamel. She's already left her father's home. She's not married. The streifer. The high they call it esavia. So why does he use the word esavia as a strange word? Es usually means with. It sounds like kinsoded. It's not spoke that way. Halacha, the final analysis. We don't like this last answer of Ina. We like the answer he gave before of Rabbi Yossi of Chanina. They gave the bottom of the page that he follows. What do you call it? That he followed the Rabbanan, and he meant one step above, one step below, and Abiyim couldn't get his head around it. Says the Gemara, Rabbi Yossi, Hilchos Mashiach. What is it all about? Now, very interesting. Before we move on, actually, I'll tell you in a minute. You're telling me why you have a problem in Minaf community. We don't have a bezin today, right? So what's the chilik? What punishment is? No, shchita kachim. We're going to learn the whole seder kachim. Zvachim, manachas. Like, listen, Hilchos Mashiach. Same question. What's in the gay here? Why are we learning it? Actually, you look, there's very few Rishonim. In fact, I know Rishonim on any of the kachim. They follow this question of Abaya. Ela droish v'kabel schar. We learn it because we want schar. What's the big deal? Hachi kamri. Hilchos Alamali. What do you have to tell me? The Hilchasa halacha kamar. In other words, Rabbi Yez's question was, we were trying to explain what Rabbi Lezer meant with his words. It's not a halachic question. The outcome is always the same. The fact is, he said, here you get skila, here you get sefer. We're trying to understand how you get to fit it into his words and who does he follow. There's no halacha here. It's a pshat. That was Rabbi Yez's question. Now, interesting to note, what mean Hilchas Mashiach? Look what Rashi says here, because there's a big machlekes in the Mefarshim. Will the Beis Hamikdash be built before Mashiach comes? Will it be built after Mashiach comes? Look what Rashi says here. Hilchos Mashiach. Halacha zu, this halacha regarding Bezdin coming and killing, and we need to know who gets reifa and who gets skila. Kishayevo Yemayis HaMashiach. When Mashiach, it's only when the days of Mashiach come, Itzrich Lonu Sheyeshuva Dal Mrs. Bezdin will come, and then the Bezdin will come back, Sanhedrin will come back, and it'll go back to the place. Why did it say Kishayevo Yemayis Mashiach? So they want to learn from this Rashi that before Mashiach actually comes, Yemayis Mashiach, the era of Mashiach, which is word today, Yemayis Mashiach, that then already the Sanhedrin will start, because there's a big machlekes, the Sanhedrin will be first. The Rambam writes somewhere that Sanhedrin in Mishpash nice. Sanhedrin will be set up before Mashiach comes, and they're going to read and the question how they get smicha, and the Rambam holds that all you get together and the whole thing. What do you call it? And they will rebuild the Sanhedrin, and then they're going to start doing all these dinim. Otherwise, the Rashi should have said Mashiach. That's what they want to be midnight. Is it a proper day or not? I don't know, but that's what they want to be midnight. Back to the Gemara. Says the Gemara further. My Rabbi Shmuel. We quote Rabbi Shmuel. What's this Rabbi Shmuel? Rabbi Shmuel says that Arusa gets skila, but a Nasuya gets exactly the same as a Bas Yisrael gets chenek. Where's this Rabbi Shmuel? What's it all about? Time we learn. It says Ubasish Koyin Kisei. It says Ubasish Koyin Kisei Chaliznais. Benaida the Arushim. Says Rabbi Shmuel says it's talking about a girl who was a naira between 12 and that's the window 12 and a half, and she's engaged. Maybe even a married woman gets raped the way we learned till now. Whether you learn Shimon or Chacham, everyone holds you get sreifa for a nesua. Tamalema, it says in pasuk Ish. It says like this: any man, any man who has adultery with a married woman, is moist humus hanoyev anefes, and the Torah doesn't qualify. The Torah does not qualify who it is. Now what? They get chenek. Hakol hoye b'chal hanoyev anefes. Everyone's included in noyev and efes. Hoytze hakos now. Hoytze hakos bas yisrael b'skil. Then the Torah comes along and says, but not if she's engaged. If she's engaged, a bas yisrael skila. And then when the Torah then highlights a bas kohen, must be talking about the same thing. Because the only exception is on Arusa. So when the Torah talks about a bas kohen straight, we're talking about Arusa. When it talks about a bas Yisrael, we're talking about only an Arusa's exception. After the Torah bas kohen l'sreifa, when the Torah says the bas kohen gets sreifa, Arusa v'lo nesuya. That's what Rabbi Shmuel holds. If people try to kill her, then they were found liars. Uboyla and the husband, what do they get? They only get the normal punishment, which is chenek. Which says vasisa loy, that the Adim get punished according to what to do to the man. What's that to do with boiler? For how do you learn boiler husband from there? Oh, you learn from the Zayman. Boiler, my catches on Mika, Ella, Zaymer Bechlal Mrs. Boiler. It says here that they get the punishment of the husband. Obviously, the husband's punishment is different than the wife. Otherwise, say loy. Boiler Mishushana, Vasisa like catches on last lachim, loy lachoisai. Yeah, Vasisa loy, loy lachoisai. Get the punishment of the man and not the woman. David Rabbi Shmuel. Rabbi Kiva says, Achas arusa, achas nesua. Rabbi Kiva holds no. Whether you're engaged or married, you always get streifa. What about Rabbi Shmuel's argument? The pasuk only singles out an arusa. How do you know also nesuya? Yochal Philip Pnuya, a single girl. We had the example before. It says over here. It says over here the woman who was married and committed adultery and they get killed. Anything else? It says there avia. Because it says the Elizabeth Avia will be out on Mikibecha. Malahals Lucy think about this about a married woman. Of course, Lucy because bow. That's what Kiva holds. That was way Chacham holds. Omle Rabbi Shmuel. Malahal. If you're going to learn Exer Shabbat, learn completely. What kind of woman is it talking about over there? Malahal and Nairi Redusa. Kind of Nairi Redusa. Talking about a girl who's an Arusa. That story over there where it says you take the Nairi Pesach Avia and you stone her. That's talking about a Bas Yisrael. So learn the Exer Shabbat completely and say that when we say that Bas Ish Koyen is talking about only unengaged and a Naira. A Naira is engaged. Two limitations. Because there's a custom. If you're going to follow, there's a custom to tell you not a single girl, go all the way. If I say it's from a Dafka, an engaged girl gets and Dafka, what do you call it, a Naira, between 12 and a half. Amr Bishmol, Achi, my brother. I guess saying it in a nice way. Yeah, bro. Yeah. Bas ubas adaj. It could have said bas ish kohen. Why say ubas and is coming to add also a married woman, and also to add a woman who usually says, if she's old, no matter what. Bas ubas. So what do? You took the letter vav. You took the letter vav, and you decided to include all these other women, a married woman, and everything else, and they should get burnt. Once you tell me the Gzer Shava is no longer really a valid Shava, he understood the Gzer Shava was cancelled. No, if the Gzer Shava was cancelled, goes back to the original question. Maybe a young girl, a single girl, should also get Sreifa. And if you can tell me no, the Gzer Shava is there to exclude a single girl, then exclude a married girl as well. Either you have Gzer Shava and then take it all away, or you have no Gzer Shava. Then nothing is excluded, and a single girl, also Bas Kohen, should get Sreifa. Rabbi Kiva says, no, I have two. The Gzer Shava is effective to a certain extent, and the pasuk is effective to a certain extent. We use the Gzer Shava to exclude a single girl. Bahani bas ubas lerabas es a married woman, and Rashi before explains that also bas comes to add a girl who's not a naira. She could be 12, she could be a zakena. Still, if she be married bas kohen, she gets reifa. Rabbi Shmuel holds bas ubas. He understood Rabbi Kiva. Now that you tell me it says Ubas, he canceled the Shava. That's why he's asking Rabbi Kiva. No, Rabbi Shmuel holds that the only girl that's singled out for Bas Kohen is a girl who's engaged, who gets Reifa, but otherwise she's like anybody else. So Rabbi Shmuel, what does he do with the word and, my Bas Ubas? What does he do with the and, my daughter, right? The boiler, he needs to get Tanya Rabbi Shmuel, but Avin. The Shematzin will be fine. A whole different drasha. We find that the Torah makes a distinction by Kohenim between whether they have blemishes or not. I would have thought, and let's also say the daughter of a Balmum, maybe it's not really a Bas Kohen. Maybe a Bas Kohen is only if your father is serving in the base of Midrash, not if she's a husband father Balmum. Tamalema Bas Ubas, and is any daughter of any Kohen. Rabbi Kiva, how does he know that? How does he know that a bas of a kohen balmum? Rabbi Kiva, he learns it from Mevahem Makribim. It says in the passage that all kohenim are kadoshim, and you shouldn't desecrate Hashem's name because they work in the base of midrash. Hey Makribim b'hoyu kodesh. It says there, Rabbi Kiva Mevahem Makribim b'hoyu kodesh. It says hey Makribim v'hoyu kodesh. So he learns from there any kohen and their kodesh. Rabbi Shmuel, Ima, he doesn't use that passage. You know how the man thought in who? Okay, you're right. Any kohen, even a chol, is still considered even though he has a mum. Sorry, even though he has a mum, he's still a kohen in every respect. That's all we know about them. That the heim makrim, they are holy regardless. Oh, but when I say it, how do you know that their daughters are also included? That they should be considered the bas kohen? Rabbi Shmuel,